Good morning, sir. The Mindanao State University was officially created by law by virtue of Republic Act 1387 as amended. The principal author of this act was the late Senator Ahmed Tumukao A. Alonto Sr., the university founding father. MSU is the first state university in the southern part of the Philippines in Mindanao, and second to the University of the Philippines, being the first and premier state-sponsored institution of higher education in the country. MSU was formally established on September 1, 1961 in Marawi City, formerly called as Tensalan, the capital city of the province of Lanao del Sur. Aspiring to be the center of excellence in instruction, research, and extension by transforming itself into a globally competitive national peace university, MSU system is committed to lead in social transformation through peace education and integration of Muslims and other cultural minority groups into the mainstream society, ensure excellence in instruction, research development, innovation, extension, and environmental education and discovery, advance national and international linkages through collaborations, and demonstrate greater excellence, relevance, and inclusiveness for Mindanao and the Filipino nation. From a one-campus university, the Mindanao State University transformed into an 11-campus university system with a total student population of 82,064 and a faculty force of 3,444 in 2015. Each campus is headed by a chancellor or superintendent for the three integrated technical vocational education campuses. Presently, MSU is the largest government university in the Philippines in terms of student population. The university president is the head of the whole MSU system and is concurrently the chief executive officer of MSU-Marawi campus. The president also serves as the ex-officio vice chairman of the Board of Regents, the highest policy-making body of the university. The Office of the President caters all services to 11 campuses. It also oversees the excellence of academic and support plans, policies, and programs of the university and all of its component entities, leads the institution in acquiring resources for the development and implementation of initiatives, guides important governance precedents, collaborates with a wide range of internal and external stakeholders, supervises the relationship between students and administration, and executes personnel system. The Office of the President is located in the Administration Building of Marawi Campus, together with the offices of the system officials, which facilitate the enhancement of different areas of the university system. And some administrative offices which are committed to provide quality services to the university constituents, including the faculty, staff, and students, and to the university clients. Situated also in the administration building are different offices which deliver diverse support services to the needs of the students. Among these are the Office of the Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, which operates as the highest academic unit of MSU-Marawi campus, the Office of the Admissions, which is the frontline semi-academic unit of MSU that administers the admission of students and ensures adherence to the demands of academic excellence, the Office of the Registrar, which plays a vital role in enforcing university rules on admission, registration, assessment of fees, and educational records. The Division of Student Affairs, which offers programs pertaining to the welfare and development of students' full potential for leadership and social responsibility, and some services designed to proactively respond to the concerns of the students, including guidance and counseling, and some student organizations such as Seniors Council, and ARCSO, the Mindanao Varsitarian, and the Supreme Student Government. The University Library of the MSU main campus does not only bring together knowledge and give sources of information in all kinds, but it also serves as the second home of the MSU constituents, especially the students, as it provides areas for studying, strengthening relationship, and enhancing communication through its different services. Among the services it offers are the signing of the university clearance, submission of hardbound thesis with CD, online database access, thesis and dissertations access, Wi-Fi access, conference or discussion rooms bookings, reading areas, the American Corner, which provides different services and holds different events, and others. Over the years, MSU-Marawi as the mother campus has transformed to an extremely modernized academic institution which holds aloft the desire to maintain quality education. At present, the university operation is complemented by the university's physical plant and facilities. These include the recently completed academic buildings that are equipped with contemporary classrooms, audiovisual rooms, and laboratories, athletic facilities, health service facilities, food service facilities, convention center, gymnasium, dormitories, cultural center, and other facilities that are used to enhance the delivery of services of the university. These physical plant and facilities are managed and sustained by the Physical Plant Division and the Motor Pool and Water System Division. The Department of the Security Services, especially the peacekeeping force, safeguards the safety of the MSU constituents and maintains the peace and order in the campus premises.
Inumang adayladan, umuod sa kahilingan.
Given the problems of Moro insurgency and widespread poverty in the Moro communities in southern Philippines before its establishment, MSU was conceived to function as a peace university and an affirmative action policy instrument to help capacitate the Moro communities to develop and catch up with the more advanced regions in the country. Pursuant to Republic Act No. 1387 passed by the Philippine Congress in 1955, the Mindanao State University located in Marawi City, formerly Dansalan in Lanao del Sur, was established in 1961 with the following objectives. First, to educate the youth of Mindanao, Sulu, and Palawan region or the Minsapala region by offering degree programs in various fields of learning. Second, to support businesses and industries in the region by providing their manpower requirements. And third, integrate the Muslims and other cultural minorities into the mainstream of national life. From a one-campus university based in Marawi City when it started its operation in 1962, with only 282 students, the university metamorphosed into an 11-campus university system. Presently, MSU is the biggest government university in the Philippines in terms of student population. The university president is the head of the whole MSU system and is concurrently the chief executive officer of MSU-Marawi campus. Each campus is headed by a chancellor or superintendent for the three integrated technical vocational education campuses. The president is ex officio vice chairman of the Board of Regents, the highest policymaking body of the university. The chairperson of the Commission on Higher Education, or CHED, is the ex officio chairperson of the BOR. The oldest and biggest campus, the MSU main campus in Marawi City, is a comprehensive university campus with 17 degree granting colleges.
Through the vision and wisdom of Dr. Wardadi Gimba, a club that would cater to the compounding quality research outputs and student researchers was founded on the 22nd day of April 2015. Dr. Gimba, the research and thesis coordinator of the College of Education main campus, spearheaded the organization with its initial members composed of students who were enrolled in her methods of research courses during the second semester class of academic year 2015-2016. The organization was then officially named the Young Researchers Club, also known as YRC.
members in the community of learning and be able to contribute in the growing research enthusiast.
To motivate and inspire undergraduates to become independent thinkers by enhancing their critical thinking skills through research and paper critiquing.
To expose undergraduates with innovative and quality researches through various activities and programs.
To inculcate the value and imperatives of research in the 21st century education.
To prepare the young researchers for the graduate program.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lian Kimada, and welcome to today's webinar hosted by the Young Researchers Club of the College of Education, Mindanao State University, with the theme, Recultivating Enthusiasm for Research Learning in the New Normal, for the topic, Scale Development Validation, Concepts and Applications. So before we go further, I'd like to introduce to you the following house rules and guidelines for today's event. So to all the participants, you are required to join the event 10 minutes earlier before the target time. Kindly use your full name upon joining here in Zoom for proper identification. And to avoid any form of distraction, you are requested to mute your microphone and turn off your cameras during the event. Zoom will be locked the moment the event starts, so in case of internet disconnection, participant may still continue watching the event via Facebook Live. And for any queries, you will have the opportunity to submit text questions to our speaker during discussions and open forum by typing it in the question pane of the control panel. These questions will be collected and answered during the open forum only. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so to formally start this program, let us thank God for His goodness and mercy by acknowledging His presence through a minute of silent prayer, and will be followed by the virtual singing of the national anthem.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Ladies and gentlemen, cheers to a new year and another chance and opportunity for us to learn and grow in this new normal. Surely, our commitment to lifelong learning help us and shapes us to start up success. So now I believe everyone is excited to learn something new from our resource speaker. So let me call in Miss Siti Hafsa Imam, a YRC member, to introduce our speaker this morning. I think Ma'am Hafsa is still connecting.
Hello? Hello?
Okay, ma'am.
Can you hear me po?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Sige. Okay. I am Siti Hafsa Imam, and it is my honor to introduce to you our research speaker for today's webinar. He finished his course BS Mathematics in St. Joseph Institute of Technology in Butuan City in the year 1993. He finished his Master of Arts in Teaching Mathematics in Caraga State University in Butuan City in the year 1996. He then finished his Master of Applied Statistics, a degree completed in 2 years under the Chad Maep Scholarship Program in Mindanao State University, IIT, in Iligan City in the year 1999. He took training courses in Singapore, Malaysia, China, and Indonesia. He is an expert in quantitative research, statistical modeling, analytics, and automation, an expert in instrument development and validation, and also an expert in statistical softwares. He was an associate professor of statistics and mathematics in the Graduate School of La Consolacion University, Philippines, in Malolos City from November 1999 to April 2007. He was a statistics, data analytics, and SPS as consultant in Accurate and Strategic Research and Development Incorporated from 2005 to 2014. A statistics and analytics methodologist and research associate in the LaSalle College of St. Benilde, Taft Avenue, Manila, from May 2007 to July 2017. He was the head of the Office of Performance Assessment from August 2017 to August 2020, and concurrently the OIC Director of the Center of Learning and Performance Assessment from May to August 2020. In the present, he is concurrently a master's thesis panelist and critic in the College of Accountancy, De La Salle University, Manila, an analytics, statistics, and PSS software consultant in iMetrics Asia Pacific Corporation in Makati City. He is also the director of the Office of Institutional Effectiveness and Research and an associate professor of quantitative research, statistics, and analytics in the La Salle College of St. Benilde. He is the president or chairman of the Philippine Association of Researchers and Statistical Software Users, and a member of the Philippine Statistical Association Incorporated. Please welcome our research speaker for today's webinar, Sir Johnny T. Amora.
Professor Johnny T. Amora.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, sir. You may now start, sir.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning to everyone. Thank you for inviting me as resource person of the topic scale development and validation, concepts and applications. So I'll share to you my humble experience about the subject matter. And if you look at my screen, I include the MSU IIT, my alma mater, my master's. At the left also is the PARSU, Philippine Association of Researchers and Statistical Software Users, which I founded a few years ago. Then at the right is my employer. Okay, so this would be a short talk about scale development and validation. I considered this as short talk because I used to deliver workshops for whole day, so straight at least 3 days workshop. But scale development and validation is a very long topic, so I'll try to discuss some important points within 1.5 hours. Okay, so I'll proceed to the outline of presentation. So I'll share some sample books on scale development and validation, sample published methodological articles on scale development and validation. And I will also share to you some published empirical research articles on scale development and validation. This sample books, sample published methodological articles, published empirical research articles are useful in your part, especially if your university is not yet aware that scale development and validation can be a thesis or dissertation. So if there are books, there are articles, both methodological and empirical articles. If these are available, it means that we can also um, do research or include this topic in our as part of our research activities in the university. So and the last part, of course, the main part, I'll share to you some steps in scale development and validation. Okay, regarding books, I have here four books from one author, then four editions. So as you can see, the title of the book is Scale Development, Theory and Applications, from um, first edition, then second edition, that was in 2003, then third edition 2012, then the latest edition is the 2016 edition. So scale development, so indicating that scale development is really existed in 1990s actually. This I was not able to get the exact year for the first edition, but I suspect that the first edition was in 1990s. Okay, so this means that scale development is very important and should not be neglected by universities. So the next book, we have the Summated Rating Scale Construction, that was in 1992. Then another one, we have Scaling Procedures, 2003. 2018, the latest one was written by Deborah Bandalos, titled Measurement Theory and Applications for Social Sciences. And in fact, when it comes to education, I remember a subject about measurement and evaluation. Okay, so regarding the articles or sample articles, published research articles on scale development, I have one about e-service quality, development and validation of the scale. So it's published in the Global Business Review, managed by Sage Publication, 2020 article. Then another one, 2017 article. This is about university quality, or UNIVQUAL, a holistic scale to assess student perceptions of service quality at universities. You have noticed that this is an application of service quality in the university. So UNIVQUAL is short for university quality. Then another one, we have measuring service quality in higher education. This was published in 2006, published in the Emerald Insight, or managed by Emerald Insight. Then the specific name of the article or journal is Marketing Intelligence and Planning. And the focus of the application of this journal is on higher education. Specifically, the title Measuring Service Quality in Higher Education. Then another one, it's about frontline employee empowerment. So scale development and validation again, but specifically this article utilized confirmatory composite analysis. So I'm sure composite or confirmatory composite analysis is new to you. Then another one, it's refinement and validation of a comprehensive scale for measuring HR practices aimed at performance enhancement and employee support. You have noticed that the title, there is title refinement, not development. So indicating that there is or there was already an existing instrument, published instrument or published scale. And the goal of the researchers was to refine and validate this instrument. So in other words, if you can or if you have or if you know that there is an existing instrument, a newly published instrument, then you can revalidate that using a different approach. So because when we talk about instrument validation, there are plenty of approaches from modern from traditional approach up to the modern approach. There is another one which is validation of organizational culture assessment instrument in healthcare setting. So you have noticed that it mentioned only validation. So it means that the instrument was already completed by another researcher, and the goal of these researchers, the present researchers, was to validate the organizational culture assessment instrument in healthcare. So notice also that the application here, the application of instrument validation is in the healthcare setting. There is university setting, there is healthcare, there is HR setting. Then there is also a new one which is relevant to the present situation in the world, the development and validation of a COVID-19 literacy scale. This is a newly published article, 2020. So this is related to the literacy about COVID-19. Regarding the published methodology articles. So notice that I classified the articles into two. The first one was about empirical research, empirical development and validation. So at this time, I'll present some or one or three articles, and I call it methodological because the presentation is about the procedure on how to or methods in the development and validation of instrument. For example, the first one, the 2019 article, this article presents the framework or paradigm on how to develop and validate measurement scale. When we say scale, so it's pangsukat. So pangsukat meaning to say it's simply the research instrument that we usually heard from our professors, research instrument. Another one is the 2015 article, the role of measurement quality in practical guidelines, on practical guidelines for assessing measurement and structural invariance. It's quite advanced. It involves measurement invariance. Then another one, this was published in 1996. I included in my presentation the old article in 1996 because I want to. My goal is for you to realize that scale development and validation is not a new area. It has been done by many scholars around the world for the very long time. As you can see, that article was written in 1996, written and published in the American Association of Neuroscience Nurses. So I also presented in varied setting. I have here from neuroscience, in education, in nursing, in HR, because I want that everybody can realize that this scale development and validation is not only applicable in the academe but also in other disciplines, in the different discipline, not only education. So in 1979, so imagine 1979, that was 50 years ago. So almost 50 years ago, because now is already January. Then that article was published in the Journal of Marketing Research in February 1979. So a paradigm for developing better measures of marketing constructs. So this paradigm for developing better measures of marketing constructs, although it's the focus is on marketing, but if you read the article, it can be applied to any discipline. That is why I included this in my as part of my lecture, part of my example on methodological article on scale development and validation. 1979. So it means that it's already 40 years. 1979. Okay, more than 40 years. Okay, so I'll proceed now to the steps on steps in instrument development and validation. It's very important that as an initial input to everybody, whether you are a college faculty or students, college students, it's very important that you will know the steps in on how to develop instrument, how to develop and then validate instrument. So my final steps, I have 5 steps, and I draw these 5 steps from different sources. The major references include the Hare et al., or Hare and his colleagues in 2019, Nittimeyer and colleagues in 2003, Haberman in 1996, Churchill in 1979. All of this are methodological articles, then book by Nittimeyer, 2003. I combined all of this and I come up with 5 steps. So meaning to say this, if you read the article of Hare, Haberman, and Churchill, they have varied steps on how to develop an instrument. If you read also the book of Nittimeyer et al., Nittimeyer and his colleagues, the authors have a proposal about the steps, the procedure, or the paradigm on scale development and validation. Upon reading this books and articles, I was able to uh, shorten my steps. As you can see, the first step is to define construct, specify domains of constructs. So the first step is really defining your construct, specifying your domains of constructs. So the construct that we emphasized here is the variable that we want to measure. For example, if you developed a questionnaire about literacy on COVID-19, so of course, before you can develop your instrument, you need to define first your construct to be measured. Then from that construct, you can also define or specify some sub constructs or subscales, or we call it sometimes as domains, domains of that constructs. Then after the definition, after the specification of the specific factors, we call it also as factors, dimensions. There are many terms, and we use them interchangeably. Um, After specifying the dimensions or domains or factors of that main variable, the next step is to generate sample of items. So the items that we shall write are just sample of items. If, for example, your variable or your construct is teaching performance, of course you will have plenty of dimensions. So maybe your dimensions might be 5 or 6. Then for each dimension, you can generate sample of items. Then the design of the scale. So for example, how do you write the items? Usually it's Likert scale type. Then how many response options? How many items, or the theoretical validity? Then there is also semantic validity, then statistical validity. Then the fifth step is assess reliability. So for the rest of our time, we will spend that to discuss the 5 steps. And the discussion is concise because short and concise because of time constraint. So if you give me 1 week time to discuss all of this, we can do that. 1 week meaning to say it's 1 week time. It means that this topic is very long. So for now, it is just an introduction. So when it comes to the first and second, if we combine the two, we have defined constructs and specified domains. So that was the then I include the generating items. So 1 and 2. So as you can see, so it's 1 and 2. Okay, so the construct teaching performance. That's an example of a construct. Then if we recall the framework of Danielson, there are 4 domains. We have planning and preparation, classroom environment, instruction and classroom, professional responsibility. I'm sorry. So the last one is professional responsibility. Then for example, our goal now is to define the constructs, specify domains of construct, then generate items. The question is, how can you do that? That's the major question. So there are techniques in defining construct. There are techniques in specifying domains of construct. generating items. So it is not simply providing the construct by your own. We can search the literature, search in the literature. So that is why literature review is the first technique. So the second one is the interviews with experts, or you can conduct focus group discussion. So in other words, if you are a writer of a thesis or dissertation, for example, and you have a new variable in your thesis or dissertation, so it is not simply thinking by your own, providing the name of the construct, then write by your own. So it is not. So scale development and validation is a tedious process. So as you can see, the first one, all of the references that I mentioned earlier mention about literature review as one of the techniques in defining the construct, in specifying the domains on construct, generating items. Literature review talaga ang common sa apat na sources na ginamit ko. Two books mention about focus group discussion, or two articles. Then one article mention about interviews with experts. Okay, so when it comes to that literature review, this is performed when the information and scientific knowledge about the object to be measured is abundant and available. So if the topic, for example, is really meaning to say there are plenty of materials available in the internet, available online in the library, online library, so you can conduct an intensive review of literature. So meaning to say, review of literature is very much useful if your goal is to specify the domains, meaning to say determine the dimensions of a specific construct, generate items. So you can utilize the articles, published articles, meaning to say just search them from the internet. So a sound literature review should be based on relevant papers, so relevant researches or published research from recognized journals. So beware of predatory journals. So I suggest if you can get or you can search a certain article, verify the integrity of the article, verify the journal if the journal is not predatory. So you can easily verify whether a journal is predatory or not by checking it in the scopus.com. So scopus.com is one of the prestigious journals or publisher in the world. So acceptable, Scopus. So scopus.com. Just go to www.scopus.com. Then you can type the title of the journal. Then the system of scopus.com will search the journal within their databases. So you will know whether that journal is in their database or not. So the proper literature review enables the researcher to build a reference table. So the following tables that I will be sharing to you is very much useful as your guide, especially beginners. So for example, this simple table presents the name of the construct. So the name of the construct is green environment. Then the items at the middle. So there are items. Then, of course, the sources of the items. So we can adapt items from different existing articles. So rather than writing your own, so it's very important that your items, even the items, shall be backed up by literature review. Okay, so another one, as you can see, the constructs or the dimensions are vigor, dedication, absorption. And all of these three are dimensions of employee engagement. The title of the paper, um, published paper, Employee Engagement in Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises in Thailand, the construction and validation of scale to measure employees. So employee engagement is the construct, the name of the construct or the name of the variable, and the domains or the dimensions are vigor, dedication, absorption. And as you can see, the there is a portion in the table that presents the definition. So definition of vigor from these references, from these articles. So in other words, the definition as well as the name of the construct already exist in the literature, and the references are provided at the right side, the third column. So for example, vigor, it means that employee behavior exists in their effort or endeavor to work, attempt to resolve problems, obstacles, and challenges to achieve their goals or assigned tasks. So if you use vigor in your thesis, for example, you can cite the references who define or what is your definition about vigor. So in research, you will be allowed to allowed to provide your own definition. We call that as operational definition. But before you provide your operational definition, you should provide also the definition based on previous studies. So this is the definition of vigor, for example, in this case. You should put in the review literature of your paper the references or the definition of vigor based on previous or based on other scholars or based on other researchers. Another one, we have dedication. Dedication, the employee's attitude of feelings about their task responsibilities, how challenging they are to their ability. The employee is also willing, proud, inspired, responsible in their work, and desire to achieve in their work. So this definition was taken from these sources. So if you want to define by your own, if you want to define dedication by your own, you should mention first the existing definition from these sources before you can present your own definition, because you need to justify your definition. That's the right way, rather than presenting it without review of literature. Okay, most especially the items, in drawing the items, drawing the definition. So another one, these variables or dimensions were taken from the article, published article. The title of this article is Human Resources Management Policies and Practices Scale. So it's an instrument, exploratory and confirmatory factor analysis. The exploratory and confirmatory factor analysis that were mentioned by the authors of this article is basically statistical validity approaches. We will mention that later on. In this study, in this scale and development and validation study, the variable is human resource management policies and practices. And the dimensions are involvement, training, development, and education, work conditions, competency-based performance appraisal, compensation, and rewards. Okay, so as you can see at the right side is the definition, the constitutive definition. Then below the definition are the authors, the sources of this variable involvement. Okay, so the authors presented a table 1 for the sources, as well as the variable names or the dimensions or the domains, then plus the definition, then the authors. So this is one way of presenting the summary of your literature review. Then another one, of course, the generation of items. So if you can see, we have the items from literature, the second column in the table. So it's really presented. Okay, so the presentation, first column about the dimension, then next is the item. Okay, then the next column, the third column, presents the adapted items, meaning to say the final research utilized these items. They adapted these items. Then the source of the item, because even items, if you adopt a certain item, whether it's only one item, you should cite the source of that information of that item. So bawal yung kukunin mo lang na mo i-cite yung source. Otherwise, you will be charged of plagiarism. Okay, so very easy. So table 3 presents the name of the variable, such as decision making, discretionary skills, information access, knowledge and skills, tools and techniques, training and development. These are the dimensions of employee empowerment, because the main variable or the main construct that the researchers want to measure is employee empowerment. Then the authors or the researchers developed their own scale about employee empowerment. And since the authors aimed to develop and validate their own instrument, their own scale called employee empowerment, then the authors conducted an intensive review of the literature, and they found out that the dimensions of employee empowerment are decision making, discretionary skills, information access, knowledge and skills, tools and technologies, and training and development. Then for every dimension, they generated items coming from these sources at the right side. As you can see at the right side, the authors, the family name of the author and the year of publication is indicated in the third column, the source column. Okay, so that's how we summarize the result of our literature review, indicating both the definition, the name of the dimension, the items, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the next step. So if you can remember, the first two was about defining the construct, specifying the dimensions or domains. Then number two, second step, was about generating the items. So the third is designing a scale. So I got a reference. Of course, these references are coming from the four that I mentioned earlier. So I call it checklist for designing a scale. In this part of my lecture, I will include topics such as how many items, how to write the items, or whether we write it in a negative statement or positive statement. So how many response options? Okay, how do we summarize the result if you have an ordinal scale? Okay, so all of that will be discussed here. So the first guide is the indicators or items must express the desired behavior and not the fact to be measured. In other words, in writing the items, the item should express the desired behavior rather than asking them about the fact. For example, here are sample items. The teacher facilitates relevant discussions. So that's the first item. The teacher recognizes the unique characteristics of students. The teacher challenges students to become responsible. Okay, so these are items, behavioral items, rather than asking them facts. So we cannot include items such as the teacher has a PhD. So it's not. The teacher has a height of 5'2", and so on and so forth. So it's not. So it's behavioral or attitude in nature. So the items must be clear, concise, and direct. So that's our guide or checklist number 2: clear, concise, and direct. So number 3, it is recommended that 10% of the items or 10% of the indicators be negatively worded to minimize bias. Okay, so in other words, if, for example, your questionnaire consists of 30 items, at least 10% of that items shall be negatively worded. Okay, so for example, of negative items or negatively phrased items, the teacher never facilitates relevant discussions. The teacher discourages students to become responsible learners. So it's very important that you include negatively worded or negatively phrased items so that the respondents will not just answer the items without reading, because if you state them in positive, or 100% of the items will be positively worded, so they can provide safe answers. They can provide answers or response without reading the items. So so that they will be encouraged to honestly provide their their answers or responses. Some 10% of the total items should be negatively worded, and that's according to our references. The fourth one, it is desirable that the indicators, so by the way, when we say indicators, items, these are used interchangeably. For example, the teacher never facilitates relevant discussions. This is an indicator of teaching performance. Okay, this is an item about teaching performance. So fourth one is, it is desirable that the indicators be placed in a random order so that they can minimize the learning or repetition response trends. So if usually if when you create your when you develop your instrument, what you usually do is to indicate the dimensions, the name of the dimension, then below that are the items, meaning to say the items are indicated below the name of the dimension. So according to the author, it is not advisable to indicate the name of the dimension in the questionnaire. In fact, the suggestion is, sabi nila, it is desirable that the items or indicators be placed in a random order. So in a random order so that they can minimize the learning or repetition response trends. So that's the technique on how to design your scale, your instrument. Fifth, in the checklist, each item should measure only one proposition or conceptualization. It should not be double-barreled with two issues embedded in one question or statement. So in short, avoid double-barreled statements or indicators. So example of double-barreled indicators, I always buy and recommend the well-lighted store. So notice that this item contains two proposition or two different actions: buy and recommend. It is possible that a certain respondent will buy but never recommend. It is possible that a certain respondent will not buy but recommend. So the correct solution for that is to split the item, the double-barreled item, this one, split it into two items. For example, I always shop at the well-lighted store. So there is only one proposition in that particular item. Okay, there's only one concept. You only measure one proposition for that particular item. The second one is, I always recommend the well-lighted store. So do not or avoid double-barreled indicators. About the number of response categories in a scale. So as you can see, this object or this image on my screen, I just screenshot this directly coming from the article. So A, So letter A, we have please mark an X in the parenthesis that indicates your answer. So ibig sabihin na letter A, this is an example of response option. Totally disagree, disagree, indifferent, agree, totally agree. So there are 5 options. And letter B, there are 7 options. Letter C, the instruction is please give a note of 0 to 10. So from 0 to 10, it means that there are 11 numbers from 0 to 10, where 0 represents the total disagreement and 10 represents the total agreement. So the instruction for letter C can include decimal numbers. Please give a note of 0 to 10. So obviously, the respondents can provide decimal numbers, 5.5, 5.7, 6.8, and so on and so forth, as long as the response is between 0 to 10. Okay, so letter D, we have please mark an X in the parenthesis that indicates your answer. So you have only 3 options: agree, neither agree, nor disagree, disagree. The question is which among the 4 should be adopted or should be the appropriate ones. So below, I provided the comments of the author. Type A is widely used form of research with the general public, meaning to say if your respondents are the general public from the grassroots up to the managerial level, type A is widely used form of research with the general public. But of course, if the respondents are children and older adults, they cannot or they have difficulty for that particular, they have difficulty of answering all this time, especially if the respondents are, then college people have type C. Of course, very obvious, since we are already college students with the higher level of comprehension and understanding, we have no difficulty of answering this letter C, or type C. Type D may be better for children and older adults. So type D, there are only 3 options. Okay, so you can utilize that if your target respondents are children or older adults, according to our sources. Type B, so the 1 to 7, we have the options from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 7. But it can create problems for people who are not experienced in responding a Likert scales. So in this, the type C assumes that the distance are equal. Letter C again. Letter C, if we instruct the respondents to provide the response from 0 to 10. So if you are a college students, at least college students, you can be able to provide decimal numbers for that. Okay. Okay. So as a continuation to that, there is a note of the author. Accurate statistical analysis requires variability in the data. That is correct. And I support this statement. I am a graduate of Master of Applied Statistics at MSU-IIT. I support this statement of the statement of the author, accurate statistical analysis requires variability in the data. Therefore, we should use more scale points. So, meaning to say, the larger the number of options, the better. Rather than providing them, say for example, yung type D, tatlo lang, agree, neither agree nor disagree, then disagree. So, if your data, the gathered data will utilize further statistical analysis, multivariate analysis subsequently. So it is advisable that your data should have large variability, so that you can provide an accurate statistical analysis. In most situations, scale should have at least 7 response options. So according to Hare and his colleagues, at least 7 response options daw, and to increase the variability of the data. 9 to 11 points also is recommended, pero at least 7, and in some situation 9 or 11 points. When we say 11 points, that in there are 11 points. The goal of that is to increase the variability of the data. That is not my word. That is not my recommendation. It is the recommendation of Hare and colleagues. You can read this article if you want. I can provide articles if you want. This is published in 2016. So usually in the academic sector, especially the traditional professors, they will react negatively about this statement. But it is based on empirical study that between 9 or between 7 to 11 are appropriate, rather than using 5 response options. In fact, it was suggested by Hare and his colleagues that if, for example, you have an existing instrument, if that existing instrument utilize the traditional 5-point scale, the authors suggested that you convert to a 7-point or higher number of response option. Do not use the 5. They categorically suggested that if, for example, an existing instrument will be adopted, and that existing instrument utilized 5-point response option, you can convert that response option into 7 or higher number of response option, according to Hare and his colleagues. So in terms of that suggestion, as a statistics major, I agree. I strongly agree with the decision of these authors. And of course, Hare is an author of a multivariate analysis book. And I remember when I was a student in IIT way back 1997 to 1999, the multivariate analysis is also Hare and his school has or have of articles or published recent article. It's 2018. Then, of course, as a continuation again, as defined by Stevens in 1946. So, tingnan nyo, 1946. Matagal na yan. If you recall the 4 types, A, B, C, D, only letter C, the data that we gather using type C can be presented using mean and standard deviation. The rest, we cannot present the data using mean and standard deviation. A, B, and C mode and frequencies. Okay, frequencies and percent. So that is not my word. It is Stevens in 1946. The words of Stevens was supported by Hare, because these statements that I put on screen were verbatimly. I copied this verbatim from the sources, from the reference that I presented earlier, specifically the article of Hare. So meaning to say, C, since we accept decimal numbers for type C, so the mean and standard deviation responses can be calculated for that. But if we talk about A, B, C, A, B, mean and standard deviation, but frequency and percent. Okay? According to Stevens in 1946, then supported by Hare in 2019. Okay, so I'll proceed. When using Likert scales, category label should be used only on the ends of the scales and removed from the middle categories. For example, if you use a 7-point response option, the first one, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, only 1 and 7, or the label of 1 and 7 shall only be provided. So at the middle, you don't need to provide the labels of the category. The scale points should be labeled below with numbers so that the respondent perceives them as being equally distant apart. The results will be intervally scaled data and not ordinal. So that's the list of Hare and his colleagues. Number 7, Likert could have several items construct responses. Number 8, avoid double negative. So I'll give you a simple sample of double negative statement. It's irrelevant discussions. So it's a negative statement. Rather than using double negative, you can express your items, like, for example, the teacher never facilitates relevant discussions, or the teacher facilitates relevant discussion. So the first one is a negatively worded statement. The second one is the positively worded statement. Avoid socially desirable responses. So this is very important. Very important because the goal of the instrument is to measure something from the target respondents. This instrument is useless if the respondents will not cooperate. So, for example, if people are more likely to cooperate with the researchers, then the results are beneficial to the advancement of the knowledge. However, if they don't cooperate, there would be a problem. If the topics are controversial or could negatively expose some group of respondents, it is possible that respondents will choose the socially desirable answers, leading the researcher to wrong conclusions. So, ibig sabihin may possibility na magsisinungaling ang respondents, hindi niya sasabihin ang totoo dahil mayroon siyang gustong i-protect. So hindi niya sasabihin ang totoo. Um, the right answer shall not be reflected in the questionnaire. So the solution of that, according to here, is include in the questionnaire that the 33 item social desirability scale. So there is a another instrument that can be used to measure para malaman mo kung sinong nagsisinungaling. So you can include that in the questionnaire. However, it's a 33 item social 33 item, additional 33 items in the questionnaire. Dahil yung 33 items na yan, the results of that questionnaire can be used to choose which respondents are valid. Okay, so that's another technique. So another technique in identifying who will be included as included in the final analysis. Meaning to say, there is a possibility that, for example, you gather 100 respondents. There is possibility na yung 25 respondents dyan ay invalid kasi nagsinungaling. So, para malaman mo kung sino sa 100 ang sinungaling, so you can include a questionnaire, and that questionnaire is called social desirability scale. Okay, it's a 33 item questionnaire. So it's new. So after that, of course, you need to assess the validity. So okay na yun, di ba? Kinuha mo na galing sa literature review, then you design your instrument based on the number of options and so on and so forth, based on our tick list. So the next step is to assess the validity. So mayroon pang validity. I presented now 3 types of validity. We have the face validity, the semantic validity, the statistical validity. Then, of course, the question when it comes to theoretical or face validity, the goal is to evaluate the items and their relationship with the measured constructs. Okay, so when we say face validity or theoretical validity, our goal for that is to evaluate the relationship of the items, your list of items versus your dimension, the dimension that you want to measure versus the items under that dimension. So you should there should be a relationship between the two. Okay, so who will evaluate? That's the question that we need to answer. Of course, based on the article, the experts or specialists will evaluate our instrument. So basically, if based on my experience as a consultant here in Metro Manila, at the same time, sometimes I sit down as panelist of the proposal defense. The suggestion, for example, a PhD student or the master's student will submit or present his or her proposal. Most of the time, the panelist will suggest that you should validate your instrument first. Validate means you hire experts of the subject matter, then let that experts of the subject matter check your work, check your questionnaire, check the validity of your questionnaire. So the questionnaire is, who are these experts? Okay, based on this on our reference, these are other researchers, PhD level, who have experience in the construct domain of the scale. So of course, if we talk about experts, dapat mayroon siyang experience about uh, the construct domain of the scale. Preferably, yung researcher na yan ay yun ang research interest niya. Ibig sabihin, yung kanyang mga publication is about that particular variable. For example, if the variable is COVID-19 literacy, so yung authors nun na 3 or 4, sila yung tatawagin nating experts. Sila yung specialist kasi sila yung ma-experience about COVID-19 literacy scale. Diba? I mentioned about publication, newly published article titled literacy COVID-19 literacy scale. So sila ang gumawa ng instrument na yon. So kung stricto talaga tayo based on this on this note from the authors, kung stricto tayo, sila yung pwede nating tatawaging expert of the subject matter. Kaso sa atin sa university, basta PhD, sasabihin na nila expert of the subject matter. Marami naman kasing quack university din, quack PhD. Ibig sabihin kahit sa atin kasi sa Philippines, maraming nag-graduate na hindi naman expert talaga sa subject matter. So how many experts? So according to Hare and colleagues, around 4 to 6 experts or specialists. But in statistics, the more, the better. The more, the merrier, according to Hare and his colleagues. Okay? What to evaluate? That's the question. So answer is evaluate the items and the relationship to the measured construct. Do the items help in measuring the target construct? Questions to be asked with the experts, especially or specialists, as suggested by Hare and colleagues. Number 1, is the wording of the items correct for the respondent audience? Should some items that do not apply to the construct domain be removed? So there is a possibility that the items that are included by the writers are not relevant with respect to the construct. So we can remove that items. We only include items that are relevant with respect to the target construct. Are there other items missing from the scale? So this is another question, or this is another question to be asked from the expert. Are there technical or specific terms that can be misunderstood by the target respondents? So remember that the second suggestion in the checklist earlier, the second one is your item should be concise, clear, and easy to understand. So use words that are understandable at the level of the respondents. If your respondents are students, use words that are easily understood by your students. If your respondents are farmers, do not give them English questionnaire. So you can translate that questionnaire from English to the native language of the farmers. Okay, so if the researcher already has the factor model, so usually that's the situation here in the Philippines. We know already the constructs and we know already the items within each construct. So the question here is the or are the items belong to the construct? Meaning to say, are the group or each group of the items belong to its construct? When we say belong, meaning do the items can help in measuring the construct? So these are the series of questions that should be asked from the experts, or meaning to say, the expert should be knowledgeable about this. Okay. The next question here is, what shall be utilized in evaluating the items? Okay, so the following shall be utilized. We have the content validity ratio. It was developed in 1975. Then the other one is the content validity index by Lean 1986. So my personal suggestion is use the CVI, the latest. Not necessarily that you have to use the two, the 1975 and 1986, but you can utilize CVI because it's the latest one. So my personal suggestion is, for your next webinar, you can include topics about CVI. So if you are interested, I have a slides. So it's part of my CVI was discussed in that seminar last year, last August, I think August, September, October, or something like that. I presented a paper in the PARSU. I include in that presentation the computation of content validity index. In fact, you don't need to do a computation. All you have to do is to use my table. Nag-produce ako ng table para ang researchers titingnan na lang nila kung valid ba yung item or not. Okay, so it's already a table depending on the number of experts. I provided experts from 3 to 9. So for example, if you have only 3 experts, titingnan mo yung table about 3 experts, then mayroong mga guidelines doon. Titingnan mo na lang kung excellent ba yung item, poor ba yung item, needs improvement ba yung item. Okay, so the next is the semantic validation. So remember, the first one was about face validity. Then the second one is about semantic validation. Nasa 4th step na tayo. So semantic validation is a confirmatory step to gauge the effectiveness of the developed questionnaire if applied to the respondents who are the focus of the research. Okay, so semantic validation is a meta-analysis process rather than a simple application of a pilot sample. Sa atin kasi, i-relate ko lang yung aking experience. Hindi naman siya general statement, pero most of the practices here in the graduate school, what we did was we asked the expert of the subject matter to validate our instrument. So ang nangyayari, chine-check lang yung spelling. So hindi naman talaga chine-check. So dapat itong suggestion ko kanina, yung suggestion ni Hare kanina, dapat yan alam ng experts of the subject matter. So these are the things that the subject expert should be checked about your questionnaire. So semantic validation is a meta-analysis process rather than a simple application of a pilot sample. Our goal here is to determine if the target respondents have no difficulty in understanding the statement. Okay, so in the semantic validation, our goal again is to determine if the target respondents have no difficulty in understanding the statement. So for example, if you create an instrument and your target respondents are students, then you will gather 20 to 40 respondents as part of your semantic validation. 20 to 40 students. So how to perform the semantic validation? So generally, we will ask the respondents if there are words or group of words in every item that they don't understand. Because our goal here is to measure something from the respondents. So we make sure that the respondents should understand what we are asking. All items, dapat malinaw sa kanila yon. Naintindihan nila yung wordings natin. The respondents will not be asked to answer your scale. Hindi muna natin sila tatanungin, or we don't need to require them to answer your scale, but we want to ask the respondents if they understand or not the statements or the indicators or the items. So the researcher should explain that this is an initial application of the scale and ask for the help of the respondents to verify if the instrument is easy to understand. Okay, so how to perform? That's the question. So there are three answers or options. The first one is choose one from the following three options. Option one is gather the respondents in one room. Okay, so you gather the respondents in one room, perform a semantic validation session, provide a printed copy of the questionnaire, then ask them to underline or encircle the words or phrases that they don't understand. Then provide a space for their comments. Space kung bakit hindi nila naintindihan. Ibig sabihin, you give the questionnaire to them, let them read item by item, then let them underline the words or group of words that they don't understand. For example, this is a sample item in the questionnaire. Downsizing the company is the best solution. So there is comment below. So most likely, i-encircle nila yung downsizing because they don't understand. So in the management field, downsizing means the reduction in the company size to improve organizational efficiency. So hindi yan maintindihan ng lahat ng empleyado. From janitorial to top management, most likely yung downsizing hindi nila naintindihan yan. So more understandable if you change the item to reduction in the number of employees is the best solution. So rather than using the item downsizing the company is the best solution, so the more understandable item is reduction in the number of employees is the best solution. So simple, dapat simple. However, this option is not applicable nowadays that we are now in the pandemic. So yung gathering the respondents, then bring them to the classroom for the semantic validation is not applicable during pandemic. So the next one is option 2, one-on-one meeting. You can do this. You can do this through, it can be face-to-face, or nowadays we can utilize our Messenger, our Skype, our Zoom. But in this case, it's a face-to-face. Provide a printed copy of the questionnaire, then ask them to underline or encircle the words or phrase that they don't understand. Then provide a space for comments. So yung number 3, option number 3, yun ang practical. So applicable yan sa atin. You can create an online survey form. Of course, don't ask the respondents to answer your question using the Likert scale, for example. No. Again, you need to ask the respondents whether they understand or not the items. In the online questionnaire, survey questionnaire, provide space for its item. Then ask them to write the words or phrases that they don't understand, as well as the space for possible comments. Reason for not understanding the item. So how to perform again? So there are 3 steps, but in step 1, you need to choose the appropriate one. So nowadays, because we are on pandemic, option 3 is okay. Step 2, revise the items, meaning to say whatever is the suggestion of the majority or the result of your semantic, whatever is the result of your step 1, you should revise your item in step number 2. However, in revising the items, you should show the changes with the other researchers if the experts are no longer available. Of course, there are, for example, ikaw lang ang author, ikaw lang mag-isa. So you show the changes to with other researchers. Okay. Step 3, ideally, a second round of semantic validation after the changes. So yung step 3, magastos yan, di ba? You need to, or magastos or time consuming, because you need to do a second round semantic validation after the changes. So in the step 3, there are barriers in the second round semantic validation. So the barriers might be a new group of respondents are not available. You cannot hire anymore. Cooperative group of respondents that can serve as the respondents for your second round semantic validation. Then resources are scarce. You have no budget, for example. Of course, kung halimbawa, okay lang kung students kasi papayag lang yan kung walang token. Pero kung professionals ang mga mo, managers, busy ang kanilang time, most likely you will provide token. Token for that particular group of respondents. Now, if the researcher can overcome the said barriers, the results will be better. Pero kung funded naman ang research mo, so okay lang yung step 3, second round semantic validation. Okay? So, as you can see, it's very tedious. Hindi kagaya sa ginawa natin sa graduate school na titingala lang tayo at isusulat na natin yung items. Hindi. Napansin nyo, ulitin ko na yung lecture ko ngayon were taken from, or the topics or the content of this lecture were taken from the sources, the 5 sources. So final comment on semantic validation, the respondents who evaluated the scale during the semantic validation must not recruited during the data collection. Meaning to say, those who were involved in the semantic validation shall not be included in the final gathering of data. Reason, they already know the scale and probably had time to reflect and build an ideal set of answers. So the last one is statistical validity. So of course, when we talk about statistical validity, it involves statistical analysis. So all you have to do is to administer your final draft of your instrument. You collect them. Nowadays, it's very easy to collect because we have online platform. You can utilize Google Form. Then using Google Form, you can be able to gather data which is ready for analysis like this. We have the columns or the items in the columns, then the persons in the rows. Okay, so it's a matrix. If you have 10 items, then 100 people, so it's a 10 by 100 matrix. Okay. So after the data collection, there are 4 techniques for the statistical validation of the scale. So we have the exploratory factor analysis, confirmatory factor analysis, confirmatory composite analysis, item response theory. These are the commonly used statistical techniques in validating further your instrument. Using this statistical techniques, you can be able to validate the construct. You can be able to assess the construct validity of your instrument. Okay, when we say construct validity, so every dimension shall be assessed. Every dimension as well as the overall instrument shall be assessed statistically. So remarks, if the study is development and validation, you can utilize both IFA and CFA. Number 1 and 2 can be utilized, or number 1 and 3 can be utilized, or you can utilize only number 1. So meaning to say, if number 1 only is available, meaning to say your data are limited, so you can utilize only number 1. But if you have rich of data, you can utilize both number 1 and 2, or you can utilize number 1 and 3. Okay, so if the study is a validation of a published scale, meaning to say there is already an existing questionnaire and you will validate it by your own, then you can utilize CFA, meaning to say number 2, or you can utilize number 3, or you can utilize number 4, IRT, item response theory. Take note, I'm using the word or. Hindi siya both. So or, ibig sabihin pwede na CFA lang. Pwede na confirmatory composite analysis lang. Pwede na IRT lang. Okay? Take note of the words or and. Kasi dito sa taas, may and akong ginamit. For example, if the study is development and validation, ibig sabihin bago, newly, you will create a new instrument. You can use both EFA and CFA. So both. Or pwede kang gumamit din ng EFA and CA. Okay. Or you can only utilize EFA. Okay, so I'll proceed. Okay, suggestion. For the suggestion, for your next webinar, include the statistical validation approaches. Because nowadays, yung statistical validity, empirical yan. Ibig sabihin, data-driven decisions. So kasi ma-identify mo dyan kung ang items ba ay nakakatulong. Do the items help in measuring the construct? You can gather evidence for that, so that you can decide whether you remove that items or you retain the items. Okay, so the last step is assess reliability. Okay, so the last step, reliability coefficients. So we can utilize the Cronbach's alpha. However, the Cronbach's alpha has limitations. So that limitations were already addressed by McDonald Omega. So the McDonald Omega is appropriate than Cronbach's alpha. So it's an alternative to Cronbach alpha. But not all people in the academy knows that Cronbach alpha has limitations. Until now, they always use that. McDonald is the appropriate one. Then in the context of structural equation modeling, we can utilize the composite reliability. So I think I am done with my more than 1 hour lecture about scale development and validation. So I may now give the floor to the organizer of this webinar for the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Professor Johnny T. Amora, for this informative and interesting talk. Surely our participants have learned a lot this morning. So before we go to our question and answer portion, we just want to express our gratitude to our resource speaker, and we'd like to present the certificate of appreciation. So, citation, Mindanao State University College of Education, Marawi City, Department of Secondary Teaching, Research and Extension Services, said Young Researchers Club present the certificate of recognition to Professor Johnny T. Amora in grateful recognition and appreciation of his lofty thoughts, brilliant ideas, and rich experiences shared with the topic scale development and validation, concepts and application during the 7th said research webinar series held on January 17, 2021, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. via Zoom. Signed, Dr. Muntia Jamila D. Sarip, the Dean of the College of Education. Signed, Florencia D. Ricoletto Jr., the Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs. Signed, Teresita O. Poblete, the Vice Chancellor for Research, Extension and Development. Signed, Professors Nia Gitamano, the Extension Coordinator, and YRC Junior Advisor. Signed, Dr. Warda D. Gimba, Research Coordinator and YRC Senior Advisor. Signed, Professor Lotis B. Dagisunan, the Chairperson of the Secondary Teaching Department, and Ms. Raihani Empangpoga, the YRC President. Thank you so much, Professor Amora, for this wonderful talk.
Thank you also for the invitation. I would like also to extend my thanks to my classmate, si Professor Sani Magno, classmates in IIT way back 1997 and 1999. Sani Magno is my best friend. So until now, we have communications. Communications, lalo na when it comes to academics. Thank you very much.
Yes po, sir. Nandito po si Professor Magno. Okay. So now we come to the question and answer session, or the open forum of this webinar. And as what I've said earlier, that if you have any questions, you may send it in our chat box or in the comment section for those who are watching via Facebook Live, because I believe our speaker is okay po, sir.
Yes po.
May tanong po dito. Galing po to kay Ma'am Rosnea Tamano. So yung tanong po is, good morning, sir. In choosing whether to adopt tools like standardized tools or develop your own tool, what are some bases to consider in deciding?
Okay. So basically the question is about the basis, no? So
yes.
Nakita ko naman dito sa screen. So in choosing whether to adopt tools like standardized tools or develop your own tool, what are some bases to consider in deciding? Deciding whether you adopt standardized tools, or you develop your own. So of course, number one of that is the content validity. So if the contents of the instrument is irrelevant, then it's time to develop your own. Kasi minsan yung standardized tools, binili lang natin yan sa ibang country, usually western part of the world. So most likely yung validity niyan, yung phase validity, yung content validity are not relevant to our culture, for example. So that's the time that you have to decide whether you develop your own or you adopt that standardized tool.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so there is another question from Sir Alvin Flores. You mentioned on having translated questionnaire para mga kulang ng aral. So yung ano, for example, I mentioned about your instrument. If your target respondents are farmers, for example, so para maintindihan nila, kasi ang goal natin, maintindihan dapat ng respondents ang ating questionnaire. So ang ginawa namin, I have also an experience about it. The original questionnaire that we created was in English. However, after 2 years, we came up with a decision to use farmers as our respondents. Ang ginawa namin is we translated, or we created a new instrument na ano kasi Ilocano na language. So ang ginawa namin, nag-hire kami ng instrument para mag-translate from English to Ilocano. Then nag-hire kami ulit ng another writer para i-back translate. So back translate meaning to say, first step, we translate from English to Ilocano, kasi Ilocano yung mga farmers namin, coffee farmers. Then from Ilocano, i-back translate namin sa English para malalaman namin kung tama ba talaga yung translation. So that's what we did. So we created a new instrument, parang translation or Ilocano version of the English original version. That was 4 years ago. Okay, can we not create a local scale? Of course you can create. So you can create a local scale sa mga existing questionnaire. Kasi nga, sabi ko kanina, pwede mo naman i-validate further yung existing questionnaire na. For example, mayroon kang nakitang instrument ngayon about COVID-19 literacy scale. COVID-19 literacy scale. That's 2020. So kung basahin mo yon, dalawang dimensions lang. Kung sa tingin mo mayroon pang additional dimensions, hindi ka comfortable doon sa newly created, so you can create your own. You can create your own, then validate using the process that I presented. Complicated, yes, Sir Alvin Flores. It's back translation or translation and back translation is a really complicated process. From Sir Fernando Siketi Jr., mayroon siyang message dito. You mentioned earlier about social desirability scale. Can you give us further sample or type of question regarding to it? So yung social desirability scale, as I mentioned earlier, it can be utilized in identifying invalid respondents. Kasi malalaman mo dito sa score kung nagsinungaling o hindi. So yung social desirability scale, nag-exist na yan. So hindi na tayo kailangang kukuha pa tayo ng gagawa pa tayo ng social desirability scale. We just adopt the 33 items. Wala akong kopya dito, so I cannot provide the instrument or a sample item. Pero pwede tayong manghingi ng kopya about it para depende sa decision ninyo kung isasama nyo yan sa inyong questionnaire. Kung i-apply na ninyo ang inyong questionnaire, meaning to say, if you administer your questionnaire, you include items or you include the 33 items from the social desirability scale. So any other concerns? Are you still there?
Sir? Okay, I think, sir, there's no more question.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Professor Amora, for answering all the questions as well as for sharing with us your knowledge today. Okay. So for the information of everybody, the Mindanao State University Office of the Vice Chancellor for Research and Extension Development, the Mamitwa Sabur Research and Technology Center, as well as the College of Education and the Office of Research and Extension Services will be having its third MSU-Marawi Campus Virtual Research Spotlight with the theme propelling educational research towards effective practice and professional development, which will be held on January 29, 2021. This coming Friday, 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. via Zoom. And also to our participants, please answer the evaluation posted in the YRC page for you to receive the electronic certificate. All right, so now I'm inviting everyone to please open your cameras for the photo opportunity with our speaker, which will be taken by Mr. Fernando Siquete Jr.
Okay, open your camera, everyone. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Another. Last one. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sir Sani.
Thank you. Okay, John.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sir Johnny.
Thank you po.
Thank you, Sir Johnny.
Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat.
Thank you, sir. Sir Magno, thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for having a great research webinar.
All right, so now that we've come to an end and before the singing of the university hymn, I would like to thank our dear participants and our resource speaker for actively participating in this webinar. I hope you enjoy the program. Keep safe, and that's all.
Tulad mong nagsabog ng liwanag.
Thank you, sir, for having me.
Sa kamarin ang ang buhay at pag-ibig sa kanay iaalay. Saan man naroon ay biglang kalagahan. Dakilang paaralan, mga kasabi ka lang.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Natapos na po ang live.